Welcome to the Gnostic Rebellion. Today we're speaking with Dr. Joshua Pritikin, author of a wonderfully interesting book that deals with a core theme here at the Gnostic Rebellion and the Gnostic book that deals with I'm sorry, and the Gnostic Church of Light. Religion Unburdened by Belief is the name of the book. We'll introduce him in a moment, but you'll find immediately below this video, in the description, you'll find a link for our donation button at uh, PayPal, and this program supports the Gnostic Church of Light. It's an historic building, and we invite you to become part of our historic congregation. We're the first fully owned and operating Gnostic church on the continents of the Americas, and your donations are tax deductible. While you do that, we'll extend this blessing. May wisdom and divine providence increase the unique genius of our congregation and bring us to health, wealth, and increase of days. Okay. Having earned his PhD in psychometrics in quantitative psychology from the University of Virginia, Dr. Joshua Pritikin, during his academic career, contributed to 10 peer reviewed publications and now maintains a practice in White City, Oregon. He runs Estrella Counseling and holds a level 3 certification with the IFS Institute, which perhaps we'll talk about a little bit later. But it is his book, Religion Unburdened by Belief, that brings us here today. Getting back to the view from nowhere, I asked this question: what of intellectual distance, detachment?
Are you
Well,
intellectual
we
distance
were
and
talking
detachment?
about the emotional connection
Are you
earlier.
talking about unblending again, or
Great way to take it. Go ahead. I'll give you your thought experiment in a minute. I just love where you're going with this.
okay? What threw me in your phrasing is you said intellectual distance, and to me, unblending is more like emotional distance than intellectual distance. When you say intellectual distance, that makes me think there's an intellectual part that you're asking to, well, maybe unblending from. But so it'd be like a specific kind of unblending. It's unblending from an intellectual part, but it wouldn't um, the phrasing of emotional distance, that seems like a more general way of describing what unblending is.
Well, I can get very objective if I have emotional distance, right? I can objectively, review, my girlfriend dumping me,
Oh, yeah,
at some point in time, right?
sure.
Um, uh,
That's why unblending is so valuable, is it gives you that perspective to try to see the events of your life in a less personal way, and um, that, that seems to um, help people respond more appropriately to them, or gives them more choices and
well,
more
yeah.
ways of
So
responding.
now to get to intellectual distance, um, I guess I'm thinking about David Hume somewhere in there, where he talks about how reason is a lie. It's deceptive because we use reason, or reason gets used by our emotions. And so we can rationalize. And that's really the whole thing that Hume is saying in a nutshell. So, um, my girlfriend dumps me and I make an argument as why women are the inferior species, and I'm completely intellectually distant from this. I'm just making the argument as a pure sophist in Plato's Greece. I'm starting with the conclusion and showing you whatever I got to show you for how. So I've got this intellectual distance. Um, and in
I
that
mean,
intellectual distance,
I mean,
I
that
do
seems
have,
like
or do I not have a view from nowhere?
I mean, what you're describing sounds like a protective part that's trying to, um, protect you from the challenge of recognizing your own
I
deficits in your
realize I'm
contribution to the
describing more
relationship.
a protection mechanism than um, what I was trying to get to. I was hoping that I was making an analogy, but I guess I failed at that. So maybe
To
my question isn't very good.
Okay, but you're
But
trying to get
it's
from the view from nowhere, and I keep identifying the part or the perspective that you're describing it from.
well, in another day, I heal from my wound. I've licked my paws and whatever else. And, I'm done with, hating all womankind. And now I've gone to this other place where women are beautiful creatures that God's gift to man. And I can make the whole opposite argument just as furtively. Um, and if you take them both together, we do get to this idea of an intellectual distance where I can formulate any one of a variety of opinions, just like maybe a propaganda writer who may not necessarily agree with his government in this moment, but he's still got to write the article, right?
I mean, that's a so you're describing um, like a mindset where you have enough distance from the situation to be able to describe it from multiple perspectives and weigh how accurate each of those perspectives are um, relative to the situation.
I'm arguing that there's an intellectual substrate as much as there is an emotional substrate, and that there are two
Okay.
different substrates that are work here.
Right, and
Okay,
this kind of
you
leads.
set up a thought experiment in the book, of someone reading this book in a church, your book in a church, and um, you basically say mood, is equivalent to emotion, the other half being exercised, such as in a state of deep concentration.
Okay, I feel like you're mixing up a couple different things. Which which direction? Like the
Well, the
so I
thought
remember.
experiment in this book being read in a church. And so there's a whole mood emotional set. The mood is the emotion, right? Going to perceive the book, it seems the assumption was going to perceive the book differently reading it in a church
Oh,
than if I was reading
oh,
it in a bus stop,
oh.
right?
Okay, right. Yeah, now I remember. I uh I was trying to place your um description of what you were calling from the book with connecting it to what I've written in, and I think you're talking about the sacred pause at the beginning of section 5.5, um, and I was just pointing out that like the reader is in a specific place in their life and place in the environment. They may be at a bus stop or at home in their comfy chair, and that's going to uh, affect their reading in maybe a small way, but like it you can't say that the reader is nowhere. Like you have to um,
Yeah, you're fixing the reader in somewhere,
yeah,
inside the environment, and you're stating that then that environment, or you're implying that that environment affects
could
the
have
interpretation.
it could have some influence over your your reading experience. Like if so, the example I mentioned is like suppose you're um, waiting for your dinner date to show up. You're at a restaurant and you're reading, waiting, So you're going to stop reading as soon as they show up. So that's affecting your reading experience.
Yeah, yeah. We come to a temporary altered state. um.
Sure.
Uh, okay, so we've really been talking about the key understanding used in the approach that IFS takes in its therapy. But you combine um, this with the Varela-Schwartz model, and it's if I got my note properly here, the Varela-Schwartz model is where we talk about blending and unblending, right?
Yeah, because those are the key ideas coming from the IFS side of the model. So from the IFS side, we're interested in inner experience. So like blending and unblending and the self are the three key components of the IFS model. And then um, uh, so the Varela short. So Francis Varela developed neurophenomenology, and his contribution to the model is the idea of these mutual constraints that help understand or help recognize how information can travel between perspectives, so that you can because usually you can't directly observe someone's internal state, but using the mutual constraints, you can infer their internal state. Is that and I've
Well,
I
you're
kind of
you're
gave a little
getting a
summary,
little,
but
you're the therapist in you is coming out there a little bit.
okay.
Where I'm attracted to the whole idea is that each psychic motive is separated. Like just as we were beginning to talk about evocation earlier, checking each of the psychic motives in the psyche and bringing them out and dealing with them. Now, you're not dealing with them proactively or trying to get to something before it happens. You're dealing about it reactively. You're something has happened and you're asking the patient, or help directing the patient to see which psychic motive and how they're identifying with that psychic motive. If they can pull themselves back from the identification, then they can better understand the psychic motive in and of itself. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
that's a I like how you've described how like the process of internal family systems therapy in like a like you've kind of improvised your own description of how it works, and which I appreciate. Like it sounds accurate to me. I like the way you framed it.
Good. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Um, it led me to this question here. What is the difference between blended and unblended parts on the inner and outer?
Okay, so I think the difference is most apparent on the outside, like that other people can notice the difference, is that when you're blended with your part, then your behavior, like it controls your behavior. So suppose you're angry with a person and you're blended with your anger, then you're likely to express that anger in whatever ways that the angry part sees fit.
Shoot
Um,
your wife.
well, yeah, I mean, if you happen to have the misfortune of having a gun in the house, yes. Um,
Oops, Freudian slip.
uh, um, okay, but if you're unblended, then you can be with that anger, like the vividness, the um, how viscerally you feel that anger may not change. You may feel that anger just as viscerally as you did before, whether you were blended with it. But when you're unblended, when it doesn't control your behavior, you have more capacity to be thoughtful.
Okay. So now on the inner.
Um, okay, so the inner experience would be when you're blended with a part, that part is driving, like you don't see any alternatives besides the alternatives that occurred to that part, so that that part is fully in control of your behavior. When you're unblended, then um, then there's like a gap. There's enough space to hear the part's inner experience, feel how angry it is, but you have enough space um, to be with that part and notice how angry it is, and thoughtfully decide how to respond.
I think because you talk that way a little bit in the book to be with that part, and I like that very much. Learning how to be with the different parts of our psyche and recognize them in relation to the central self. Um, the
That's the
central
key.
self being much
That's
more
the,
than the ego. You
yeah,
know,
beautifully. I love how you said that. That was a beautiful way you articulated that.
okay, well, thank you. Um, so this brings us back to uh, experience, verification, and clarification. And I just wrote this note here: the knowledge spectrum. Is that
Okay, right.
jarring?
No, spectrum.
Huh?
Let me try to remember. I remember um okay, knowledge spectrum. Let me try to remember what this is. Okay, so in our previous interviews, we talked about beliefs and uh, how to convert beliefs into knowledge. Like the way we do that is uh, by verifying them with evidence. And just to review, some beliefs are easier than others to verify. So, like if you believe that it's hot outside, that's pretty easy to verify. You can just go outside and check, or check a thermometer.
Right. We spoke of empirical belief.
um, and some beliefs are harder to verify. Like suppose um, you're trying to evaluate artwork. Some of the descriptions of artwork, like when it was painted, who it was painted by, that kind of thing. Those are objective facts, but a large part of the evaluation is going to be subjective, which is fine.
But
There's
yes,
nothing
I
wrong with
could,
that.
I could believe that, cubism is balderdash and just sit down and make fun of Picasso paintings all night long.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
and that's
so
fine
that's
because
operating
we
on
don't
that.
have.
But there's another belief that I think becomes important for the Gnostics. Religion unburdened by belief. And that's the belief in God or in angels or Jesus is coming for the second coming or the rapture or and do we have a right to some of these beliefs? I just wanted to say that, but
I mean,
just as
there's
one
no problem with believing them as is like a tentative beliefs, but having strong conviction in those beliefs, like I would question whether that's justified. Like, what evidence do you have that would justify strong conviction in those beliefs? So that the beliefs are fine, it's no problem having them, but the conviction is
beliefs
the
are
thing to focus
fine
on.
so long as they don't hurt another, right? Because I could believe that, everybody with a dog needs to have their left foot cut off. Now I'm nothing but a psychotic running around the neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean that's a good threshold to keep an eye on. If it's
Well,
like
that's
hurting,
it.
if your belief is hurting other people, then that's worth some scrutiny. Like, are you really justified in having that
So
belief?
in these two extremes, There's everything in between.
Okay, right. So, and what you're getting at is that I'm correlating. So we just talked about belief and knowledge, and what kind of beliefs have evidence, and then connecting that with um, like the first. So that there's these perspectives that we get from the construction of language, like our grammatical pronouns, first person, second person, third person,
Yeah.
and we can actually find an association between uh, like how so okay, so let me just give the example. So like the so if you have a belief, we can associate beliefs with whether they are based on first person, second person, or third person kind of evidence. So uh, like a first person beliefs is like, I wake up and I feel well rested today, or I um, I'm just grumpy when I wake up.
A first
So that
person belief can you can believe in yourself. You can pass the test. Um,
sure,
a
yeah, yeah.
second person belief is that I can believe your testimony about what's going to be on the test. Um, a third person belief, is that, the Bible tells me that, God is holy.
Well, no, but these perspectives are ways of classifying evidence. So what I mean is it's not the belief that this applies to, but the evidence. So like a third person evidence would be um, that you have a like an X-ray of your shoulder, that you have some shoulder injury. So that's like a third person evidence. Second person evidence
An
would
X-ray?
be
An X-ray is a third person evidence. Well, if you're saying a book, a textual component telling us something. I mean, let's get to belief because X-rays not implying any belief. X-rays can
what's the
be read. They're
evidence?
science.
I mean,
That
it's
X-ray is the evidence of what's going on in my lungs. It's a printout. I think there's a difference between an X-ray and say a book that says, everybody with shoelaces can walk 3 inches above the ground. Um, it because that's a third person testimony. I'm reading it in a book. It's been relayed, printed for how long? Whereas the second person, well, there's a source that's still not direct for me, but it's a trusted source and a reliable source. So I'm in second person here. You can
okay.
testify to me that this is how IFS works, and I believe you because you're a trusted source for that information.
Okay, right.
Um,
Yeah, that would be like a second person grade of evidence,
yeah,
is that you're trusting my testimony.
yeah. And first person of source is of course that I know this for myself. The evidence is either in my possession or is something I have witnessed and can verify and validate.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. So
Okay, so
yeah.
it's the third person now because I'm getting really to the meat of the matter, religion unburdened by belief, and perhaps from the Gnostic perspective. But all testimony, whether of Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, Allah, what have you, all testimony there is third person, or maybe we should say 300,986th person,
Well,
right?
so I'd still call it second person because it's still testimony, maybe from many people, but we don't have like um, like archaeological evidence in many, well, I mean, in some cases we do, but in many cases we don't have archaeological evidence for every detail of the Bible or something like that. So it's,
Well, I mean, we can prove that, Jesus never existed. We can prove that Mohammed was ignorant and illiterate. Um, couldn't have wrote the Quran. Um, we can show the literary structures they emerged from. We can show how the writers of the Old Testament literally copied Sumerian scripture and just colored it into their own thing, and how that got changed by Greek philosophy. Then how
okay, so
that fits
you're
into.
saying that we do have like third person objective evidence for some of the conclusions that we draw from ancient literature.
Well, we have historical record and documentary evidence in a lot of cases that shows that these things that are believed in are unreal. So I have some negative evidence that points to the negative. And so what I'm getting to full circle there is, when do those beliefs uh, burden down religion?
Well, I feel like these are kind of orthogonal concerns. Um, so you're saying you're aware of certain evidence that other people aren't aware of, and so you have adjusted your beliefs
I'm
to be in
aware of
alignment
certain
with those.
evidence that the average believer doesn't believe in, not that a host of academics and others, have really
Yeah,
forged and entered into the literature.
I didn't mean to criticize the or question the validity of your evidence. Like probably your evidence is fine. I'm just saying that the like you are aware of uh, third person evidence that maybe other believers aren't, and so you've adjusted your belief system to account for those evidence.
Um, can't say that I adjusted my belief system. That those kinds of evidences kicked me off of belief altogether.
Well, okay,
I
so belief
believe
or
in
disbelief.
empirical beliefs. The sun will
Yeah,
rise tomorrow. Okay.
right.
You have a
Yeah.
nose on your face. These are things I truly believe in empirically. But when it comes to the assumptions and presumptions of spiritual belief, I find that they burden down religion, that they lead people, they set up a noble lie, Plato's noble lie. They set up the noble lie, but the noble lie must deteriorate into ignobility and even tyranny, danger, superstition.
Well, okay, but I feel like all you're saying is that um, people have more conviction than is justified by the evidence. That's what I'm hearing. Is that wrong?
um I don't want to berate the common person who doesn't give a damn about any of this. All they want to do is get their family fed and make sure the kids get to college or whatever, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, that's where most people are. We're talking off on one edge of the universe, and we're so far in the fringe, you can't see the sweater anymore. Um, and
No,
yet,
but like I think what you're getting at is like you're trying to be polite, but you're saying that um, you notice many people have stronger convictions than are justified by the evidence that they're aware of.
will you tell people that I said something polite and that I actually tried to be polite?
Okay.
I've spent too
Um,
many years building up the opposite reputation. So
can
you
can we
got me
have
on.
a bio break real quick?
Go ahead, yes.
Okay. I'm
Okay, that'll
gonna
give me a chance to run too. I'll get something to drink. I've been drinking coffee. You go run.
okay, sounds good. Well, just keep rolling we'll have to cut this out of when we do the final cut, we'll cut this out.
Yeah,
So,
just by me.
um,
We'll remember. We'll get it. Don't
okay,
worry.
but I was thinking like, how do we bookmark this? We'll remember. We'll remember.
Okay. And I thought I was getting you excited with my great ideas. You were just doing the dance. There we go. A little bit of yoo-hoo with 8 vitamins and minerals. I believe that.
Okay.
My little doggy's down here expecting something, so I'm going to just straighten him out. You're going to have to wait, sweetie pie. That's all there is to it. Okay, we'll put this over here. And we'll pick up. Okay. I feel like we got through some of this in our conversation. Neurophenomenology, embodiment, and cognitive science, we kind of talked about. Um, uh, you get into psychedelics and cognitive states, problem solving. And I mentioned Einstein in the dream straddling the beam of light, but also those profound experiences we can have on psychedelics that can solve problems, which you're taking from a very psychological perspective. And you present the experiment of inducing ketamine into an anesthetized patient, and we're getting back to cognitive states here, um, and in that you proved uh, through this experiment, or the experiment proved, what is the different. Um, you proved how
What's the
the drug is not the mechanism.
right? What's the mechanism of change? The study suggests that, like, the conscious experience of the altered state is important for challenging beliefs. Like that, if you don't have that conscious experience, then you don't get the relief from depression. That's what the study found.
Right. So and there's the whole problem of where does consciousness go when you're put in, when you're anesthetized. Um, and I've not addressed that in my own thoughts too well to pursue that.
Yeah.
Uh, this is your question that we take here, and you're asking, how do we know whether we're engaged in productive belief revealing experiences or fooling ourselves? So we're getting back to where we were, in that we're talking about belief, and again, unburdening religion from belief. So you ask the perfect question: belief revealing experiences. Um, And I wrote a note here, I think just self-awareness versus self-consciousness.
Well, okay, you wrote a note, self-awareness versus self-consciousness. How do you
In
distinguish
light
those
of the
two?
question you ask, how do we know whether we're engaged in productive belief-revealing experiences? Right? I could take a psychotropic substance or, go through any other process or have any other dramatic experience. And it can reveal to me that, my belief in, a certain God has been false. And that, I made a mistake. Um, I can also have that same belief reaffirmed, right? And say, I've chosen the right God. This is the one I should be with, and he's watching over me or she's watching over me or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. So like if we're accumulating beliefs or releasing them, like are we going in the right direction? That's the question.
I think so.
And like what is the right direction?
That sets that up. But certainly with the idea of gnosis and knowing oneself, the right direction is how does this help me to better know myself?
Yes. Okay. And that draws us back to the question of like how do we define self? And from a like I think internal family systems has a way of answering this question. So we can the qualities of self are like timeless. For example, like curiosity uh, is something you have no matter how old you are, and like you may be curious about different things, but the feeling of curiosity is the same throughout your life. So
Is
that is it. Well,
I know plenty of people that never were curious and aren't now and never are gonna be.
like what's the counterexample? Like, do you? Um,
Well, I'm curious about many things. I wish I had, 1,000 more years, to study the different things that I'm curious about. You know, um, And so, I have had to make very practical choices. I can, dig deeper into this without the time for that or that.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
but that
I
that's
know other
still
people
talking.
that their
You're,
curiosity disappeared years ago
yeah,
about
yeah,
anything.
but okay, but you're talking about the content of curiosity or the presence or lack of it. And like I guess the what I would just come back to is like if curiosity is present, does it feel like does it depend on your age? Like do you feel is does curiosity
For the
feels
person
different
who
when
is curious, no, no. I think
okay,
if anything, age can enhance the curiosity because you know how much more there is to know.
sure.
Uh,
Okay, so
so
that's one way to recognize aspects of yourself, and the other, um, like drawing from internal family systems, um, the other the other test is whether parts find that quality to be comforting or not. So if you express like a compassion towards a part of yourself, does that does that part experience it as comforting? If it does, then that would suggest that the compassion is coming from a it's like a self quality. If um,
So, in other words, the qualities of self that I'm assessing are the things that I believe in. I believe I'm a good person. I believe that I'm an intelligent person. I believe that, I'm a handsome person. I believe, these self-assessments and do I have proper belief in them? You know what I'm
ah
saying?
okay, but that sounds like a attributes that uh, No, I see what you're getting at. So
They're attributes, but
those
I
ways
have
of
to believe
describing
in them,
yourself.
right? I mean, we have the story of the gorgeous girl that thought she was frumpy. You know what I'm saying? The brilliant guy who thought he was an idiot. We have those assessments,
Okay,
and
well,
they're believed in. You know what I'm
hold
saying?
on, hold on. I feel like um, this might be easier to understand with a demonstration um, if you're up for it. I could interview you in the way that I would work with a client, a counseling client to help to identify your self qualities.
Okay, go ahead.
Um, so okay, so you were describing aspects of yourself. So there was
Well, not necessarily aspects of myself, but I was bringing them up as hypotheticals.
hypothetical. Okay, well let's make this more concrete. So, is there a part of you that would volunteer to look at you and describe who they see?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
So
so
when you say look at me and describe what I see, are we talking physically? Are we talking mentally, emotionally, all three? Any mix I choose?
yeah, how do you want to respond? Like, I don't coach my clients about how they should respond. They just tell me, they just answer my
Um,
questions.
well, I would start out then, since you're putting it in this manner, I would start out to say I'm a multifaceted person in terms of qualities and talents. Um, a bit of an autodidact, right?
Okay, so that
Uh,
multi-talented person, can you ask that? Like, that's an important part of you, and um, like it makes sense to me why you would say that. But can you ask that part of you to like sit next to you and then um, in like an imaginary chair
okay.
and then look again, like who do you if mm, if those parts would be willing, like could they look at PJ and describe who they see now?
So my good buddy here, Mr. Brilliant, is over here, right?
Okay.
And it's
Yes.
looking at me minus my brilliance,
Yes.
or
Yes.
okay. I guess in terms of minus my brilliance, it's that void that I've always felt that I've very much needed to fill. Because I start out by feeling myself as stupid and not having any
Like
reasonable capacity to excel.
inadequate, you feel inadequate, like there's a an inadequacy there, kind of the brilliant
Inadequacy.
part is trying to make up for.
Um, Not so much trying to make up for it. No, I don't feel that I need to make up for anything, but it becomes an obsession to fill that void with the knowledge and wisdom that I seek.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can tie that into a whole lot of, childhood experience and all sorts of other things. Um, I also like that beyond this very knowledgeable self, there's a meta thought that I can simultaneously access. Um, when I was writing the book that I sent you, the some of that just had to scroll just to get the wording down. I just had to let my head give it to me. It was coming, and then I go back and I look up things and I find that my intuitions were correct. So I find much validation in the meta thought that I have, besides the thoughts and ideas that I like to play with.
Okay.
And
So can I pause you there?
Yeah.
So you've named two more parts. There's a part that feels like there's a void, that there's a inadequacy, that a lack of wisdom that you're trying to fill. Is that right?
I don't wish to describe it as inadequacy. It's unknowing.
Okay.
I don't feel inadequate in any way intellectual.
So just um, like a recognition of not knowing, of humility, like a very
Yeah,
profound humility. Okay.
yeah, I feel
So
that sense of profound humility that was always natural. I would say maybe when younger, there might have been some inadequacy in this. I was held up
okay.
to other people, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. Okay. So you named another part. So so can you ask that young part that felt inadequate to sit next to you, and also um, the deeply humble part also to sit next to you? And let's see, what was the other one that you also described?
The meta part.
Oh, the meta part. Yeah, the intuition. So you have a strong sense of intuition that you admire, that you've noticed has good instincts, that is often correct about like a gut feeling. So if you can ask that part also to sit next to you, and then we'll repeat the process. Ask one of those parts if they'd be willing to volunteer to look at you and describe who they see.
First one that came to mind, even before you said all that, was immediately the inadequate child that felt inadequate about my ignorance and all that, and looking at what it sees today. Um, I got there. Be proud. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to feel, I'm going to answer a lot of those questions for myself. I'm going to be knowledgeable in the things that are very, very important to me.
Oh, okay.
Um,
So that inadequate child feels reassured by looking at who you are now.
yeah, the child would have to look at me and say, "Look, you got there. You're cool. We bad."
Okay. And so my interpretation is that that child that felt inadequate is feeling some of your self energy, that like that's the reason I'm making that interpretation is like it was feeling reassured, so um and comforted, so that that young child was feeling comforted by who you are now. And so it was feeling PJ, who's not a part, PJ's self energy is is sharing some comfort with the child, then, and the child is able to receive that. Does that
um,
resonate or?
yes. I mean, certainly, you've certainly made me conscious of that motive. Uh, and perhaps that's something new happening here now. Perhaps it's something I've done unconsciously a long, long time ago. I'd have to figure that one out, you know.
Okay.
Um, I think when you're obsessed with anything, you exceed at it because you put the energy into it, and that obsession is the energy. When you can um, apply that energy to the goal, shall we say, right? Because you feel a vacuum, and the goal is to fill the vacuum, right? So I didn't know, I'd sit down with my paper in seventh grade, and say, okay, I'm going to be a writer. What the fuck do I talk about? Because I didn't know anything. There was nothing in me.
Yeah.
I knew spaghetti very well.
Okay. Yeah. So I think I'm hearing from um, that young part of you who felt inadequate, who was recounting an experience, of aspiring to write, and then contrasting that with an awareness of who you are now, um, like a developing awareness, a new awareness of who you are now, and feeling comforted by that, that you've become someone who does have something to say.
And I write effortlessly. I've got, over 30 books on the market, et cetera, et cetera. So, um, so I went a long way to get here, but I discovered other things through that. I discovered that it was the ideas that I liked, and playing around with those ideas, and that I could formulate interesting and innovative ideas that connect with uh, interesting people,
Yeah.
and bring that out. Now,
Okay. Can I pause you there? And
yeah,
how does that how does that young part of yourself who felt inadequate, how does it feel hearing you talk about like the way you love to play with ideas now? What's it like for that young part to hear that?
um, I tell that to myself a lot. Um, since I stopped working in the school system, uh, for the last 2 years, and I'm going to stay there until I retire. I'm delivering auto parts. This is my first real experience full time with a working class set of people, and I'm not used to that. It's a whole different mindset, a little bit of a jailhouse mentality, emotions distorted by the lack of the ability to comprehend things, and what was your question again? I needed that for the setup for my answer.
Yeah, so I asked you, what's it like for that young part of yourself that felt inadequate to hear you talk about how you love to play with
We were
ideas
talking
now?
about ideas. I got it. We were talking about ideas. And one of the things that I experienced with them, and I experienced it right from the first day, good morning. What do you mean, good morning? What's good about it? Come on, you know what I'm saying? I'm at work, damn it. I was used to being in professional environments. Good morning. Well, good morning. How are you? You know what I'm saying? Who's getting the coffee today? you know, um, and one of the things I came to see is how happy I am. Life's not perfect for me. I can complain about a few things, I always make the joke, anytime you want, we'll get a bottle of whiskey, we'll sit down and I'll tell you everything. Just to make sure that they don't ask me how I feel again, because that's a whole joke for me. Um, uh, but because I play with ideas, because I'm alive with the one part of my mind that puts things together, that builds my soul, that nurtures my creative spirit and my spiritual uh, function. You know what I'm saying? It's life is great. Life is pure joy. Does that, I mean, like the wind blew off the front of my, front panel on a church the other day from a windstorm. And so, I got a financial headache. How am I going to come up with this money now? The guy's coming to look at it tomorrow, right? Um, and so I got my headaches, and I can complain about certain things and whatever else, but anything that I've come through, even the traumas of my life, I've come through them. I understand them, and I can incorporate them into who and what I am. And you're going to get me in who and what I am. You're going to get me as the nice intellectual guy, and I'm also going to be the gruff guy, I'm still a working class guy, even though I can mingle in an upper middle class environment and gain respect. But I still have the morality of my class structure, that the upper middle class guy doesn't have.
Yeah.
Um,
So I'm not sure who we're hearing from now. Are you conveying this information to that young part that felt inadequate, or or are you telling me? Like, I'm not sure
I was just
which
trying to
how.
be more articulate about it. That's all I think. just being more revealing.
Okay. And is that young part that felt inadequate? Was it listening to how you see yourself now in the present?
I've been through that. Um, I started a project of rereading a lot of my diaries.
Hmm.
And when I got to, I only had two diaries from college, but when I got to them, it was unbelievably pathetic. I mean, I was in pain. I was a fucking basket case of insecurity on top of desperation, on top of, everything you could imagine a young man would be. But I hated that self. He was so retardedly pathetic emotionally. And I think back of all that, and even though that's a little older than that young kid that had that vacuum, I was fulfilling that vacuum at the time. And yet I had this whole other thing going on because I was in college, right? So I was, you know, I took those courses I needed to take to fill that vacuum, you know. Um, and yet there were these other deficiencies that I felt. And just the fact that, I was still emotionally confused. I hadn't worked through a lot of things yet. So, um, all that's still a part of me. There was some tremendous trauma in all that. Um,
So you're saying you've
Trauma
already done
that,
some of what you're saying is you've already done some of this work. You've already read those journals and the parts that were in so much anguish, so much confusion have been um, like you've spent some time with those parts and they're reassured by how you've developed as you've gotten older.
and some of those traumas, I don't believe will ever be fully alleviated.
Sure.
Right?
I mean, yeah, I mean that you can't change the past. Like mm, the
Well,
past happened,
I
and
wear them as a badge of honor. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
right.
They're
Just do
still
the
a part of me, and I choose not to uh, resent or in any way lament over any part of my life. Every last part of my life made me who I am now, and I very much like me now.
yeah.
Okay, I hold up by my own standards.
Okay. And so sorry with the I can't. It's getting a phone call. I have to
Take the letter, Maria.
try to decline it here. Ah,
Address it to my
um,
wife.
fine. One
Tell I'm gonna
minute.
be her. Gonna start a new life.
Okay. I texted busy, so we're good. Okay,
Okay.
so where are we? So I just wanted to make sure we don't lose perspective. The point of our conversation was I was treating you like one of my counseling clients and guiding you towards kind of isolating the PJ who's not apart from all the other parts that are maybe covering
And
that
you
up.
help me to uncover more and more parts, and we're on the verge of proving that I'm truly schizophrenic.
No, I mean,
No, no, no.
I think you're
I
joking,
found it
but
fascinating how you kept adding more parts on, and
okay.
I didn't at first see that I was starting to do that, but then I was like, okay, I just gave him three more. Um, and
And there's nothing unusual about that. Like all of like I have tons of parts. Every time I interview my clients, I find many parts, some that often that they're not aware of. So that's completely typical and expected.
yeah, yeah, things can trigger your own memories, and I understand a little bit of how that process works, and how you bring that through both self therapy and then you've had your own therapy sessions just for licensing, etc. So you know the process from both sides of the couch.
Yeah, and just to be clear, like I'm not a licensed therapist. I practice under like an alternative counseling law in Oregon. So it's like something very state specific.
Okay, yeah, but
Anyway,